Welcome to the Bambooszn Podcast. I'm your host, sober fitness coach Dorian Wormsley. On this podcast, you'll hear stories of resilience, transformation, and most importantly, growth. Today, I have an amazing guest. During my journey of healing and growth, I hit a wall, and I needed somebody to help me navigate through that wall to become my better self. So I went on Instagram and I found this amazing woman. She's a life coach, real estate agent, mother, fit girl, just a beast at everything she does. Welcome the amazing Lorraine Lindsey.
Wow, that was a hell of an introduction. Thank you, Dorian.
Yeah, I gotta hype you up. You know, you've helped me personally on so many different levels. And when I was on the search for a life coach, it was a struggle because I honestly wanted somebody who could relate to me in different levels. You know, someone of color who kind of had the similar story to me or understand the struggles growing up the way I did. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and also what made you get into coaching.
Oh, great questions. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to tell you thank you. You make coaching a lot easier than some people do because you're open to the idea of coaching and you're coachable. You know, you'll take in information and you're very vulnerable and you allow yourself to share. And one of the things that is a big part of having effective coaching is having someone who's coachable. So I always take my hats off to you, and I'm always super proud of seeing your progress because you actually take the tools and do things with it. And you have made leaps and bounds. So thank you for letting me be here on this podcast with you. A little bit about me. So I'm from England originally, is where I was born. And I came to the United States in the 80s. My stepfather was in the U.S. Air Force, and he was stationed originally in England and then eventually got restationed to come here to Vegas. And he stayed here until he was no longer in the Air Force. And unfortunately, when I was about 10 years old, he took his life. So we ended up staying here in Las Vegas, and I just I grew up here. It became my life. Had a lot of trials and tribulations growing up. I grew up in a home that was, there was a lot of domestic violence. I talk about this a lot on my podcast as well. I just experienced a lot of hardships growing up, a lot of stuff that created this survivor mentality. I was the oldest for my siblings, and my mother was going through a lot, especially after my dad took his life. There was, again, a incredible amount of abuse or whatever. So it taught me to be this kind of survivor. I needed to be this person that was going to take care of my mom and take care of my sisters. And not that that was the assignment, but I felt obligated to those things. I left home when I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Because I had become pregnant. And I just didn't want my mom to have the responsibility of taking care of my son because that was a choice that I had made. And so that was kind of like a huge paradigm shift for me to really figure out life in a different way. Because before me getting pregnant, I was a very angry person. I had a lot of anger issues because of my childhood. And I didn't know how to channel that energy and that anger. But there was things that I did, and I won't be long-winded, that gave me perseverance. Me having my son gave me this incredible amount of determination for my life and for his. And at some point in the journey of my life, I started reflecting. Because I started realizing that when I reflect on things, both good and bad, I could make better decisions, whereas for a long time, I was just kind of going through life blindly, just doing things aimlessly and not having great results. And I think that's kind of like how the coaching for me kind of started birthing itself inside. Although I didn't have a word for it or a career or anything I was going to be doing, I knew at some point in my life that I wanted to help people. And heal people. And initially when I had that kind of thing inside of me to want to do that, I took it literally in the sense of doing it through medicine. So I went to school to be a paramedic. I studied paramedicine, became an EMT for an ambulance company here for about 10 years. And then at some point I went to nursing school and was doing that and did some cadet programs through the fire department. So I had this path, and then things just kind of started falling apart in that career path. And I didn't understand, like, why is this not working out? Why am I not? I was really, really good at what I was doing. I loved the science behind it. I loved taking care of people, but the career wasn't working out. And that's when I ultimately stumbled across this thing called life coach. And I didn't know what that was. But the more I started researching it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. That I don't have to help and heal literally through medicine, that I can find other ways to channel this desire that I had. And so it just kind of took on a life of its own. I've been doing it now for a little over 10 years. So
it's crazy to me when we first started working with each other and all these, obviously over a year of time, I got to know you a little better and know a lot of things you did. It's so interesting to me the many things you've done, the different jobs. And you told me one day, oh yeah, I was doing, you didn't mention just now you did the EMT, but you didn't mention the firefighter.
yeah. I never told you that before?
No, I'm saying you have,
Oh,
but
okay.
you didn't. You can speak on that a little bit.
Yeah.
You did firefighter training, or what was it you did?
So when I started school for the EMT stuff, one of my, who's now a very dear friend, but he was a mentor for me at the time and my teacher, and he had said to me, God, you've got this like tenacity and this like umph to you. You should try out for the fire department. And I was like, firefighting, huh? And ironically, and I've shared this story so many times, but ironically, when I was growing up in my neighborhood, okay, it was called Crack Alley. It was just chaos and drugs, and it was just a bad neighborhood. And there were firefighters in and out of our neighborhood, police and all that stuff because of the chaos that was going on. As a little girl, those people were like heroes and interesting people that were very different from the people that were in my environment. But I felt like we were invisible to them. Like they never saw us. I was little and I didn't really comprehend that they were just busy and there were things going on. Anyways, on this one particular day, it was summertime, there was a murder in my neighborhood. And it was literally right next, I lived in a fourplex, it was a fourplex next to mine. And so, as you can imagine, everyone's being nosy, they're out there looking, the police are there, what have you. So while everyone's paying attention to that, there's a fire truck that's parked alongside my building. And I was like totally like mesmerized by this fire truck. So I'm over there staring at the fire truck and I hear someone yell, hey, what are you looking at? And I turn around, it's a fireman talking to me. And I panic because I thought I'm invisible, they can't see me. How is it that now he's talking to me and now I'm in trouble? So he said, are you looking at my fire truck? And I was like kind of nodding my head, yeah. And he says, don't look at it. And I go to walk away and he says, I want you to get on it.
Oh.
And he put me on the fire truck and he started showing me all the apparatus and all the cool stuff on the fire truck. And then he asked me a question that no one had ever asked me before. And that question was, what do you want to do when you get older? What is this question? No one had ever asked me. And I said, who, me? He said, yeah, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a firefighter when you get older? And I said, you mean I could be a firefighter? And he said, little girl, you can be anything you want. There was something about that messaging. And when he said that to me, that planted this seed in me, right? It was this thing that gave me possibility to an impossible life at that time. I did not know that fast forward when I decided to go to school to be an EMT, which I didn't even know why I wanted to do that, but there was something about that seed that he planted that made me feel like it was possible I could do it.
Yeah.
So circling back to when my professor said you should be a firefighter, it was like, yes, I should. This is my moment. And I had this belief that I could do it. And so there was this program, it was an explorers program, where you would go and you would do all the things. Like I had to try out for it. There were, in my program, I don't know, there was something like 300 kids who had tried out for it. I was young. I was 18, 19 years old. There was only a handful of us that were women because you had to do a full physical agility. And I freaking kicked ass, and I was the only girl who made it into the squad of like 60 people.
Damn.
And it was like this new thing for me, this newfound thing. And it was exciting. I don't know why I'm rambling because I forgot what the original question was, but yeah. I forgot what the question was.
So you told us. So I asked you to tell us a little bit of who you were.
Oh yeah.
You told us,
Okay,
and then
sorry.
I just wanted to mention because when I was training you or we'll have our coaching sessions, you'll tell me all these stories, to help me relate.
Yeah.
And you'll see all these things, and I'm like, you were a firefighter, or firefighter training? You were EMT?
Yeah.
You did all these things? Because when I met you, I thought just life coaching and real estate was just who you were, but no, you had this journey of many different jobs and experiences.
Yeah.
And you always tell me like I'm a woman that lived many lives.
Yes.
And I believe it. It's so interesting. Back to where you said you grew up in Crack Alley, right? And no, the reason it's funny because when I was looking for a life coach, like I said, I want somebody who could relate to and all these things. During our first initial conversations, come to find out, me and you went to the same middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or middle school. And you lived in the Vistas, which is right across. And it's so funny because when I was a kid.
That's so funny.
When I was a kid and I was in middle school, I went to Orr Middle School. And maybe going into high school, there was always this pretty little light-skinned girl that lived at the Vistas. And I would go over there to see her.
That's funny.
And it was just how you explained it. It was just dudes out there slinging drugs, always chaos, people getting killed, and all these things right over here, for those who don't know, in Las Vegas, but the Vistas. So when we were talking about this on our first one or two sessions when we met each other, it was like, I guess I spoke into his existence.
Yeah, that's
you
crazy.
becoming my life coach. Like everything came in order. Like I'm like, wow, she went to the same middle school and everything. Like grew up and had to deal with things growing up as a kid and being less fortunate and all those things and stories of being on food stamps and all those struggles. Like same shit I went through. And then to see you now as this strong woman that's life coach, changing people's lives and doing all these great things. It was I guess the universe or whoever out there brought it all together.
It's interesting that you say that because when I look back and reflect on my life now, I've worn a lot of hats and I've had a really unique life experience. And so there are certain things that you could learn as a coach through classes and courses and things like that, which I've done all of those things. I feel like it's incredibly important to do that and be responsible to your clients by educating yourself. But then there's also this intuitive thing that you learn and you develop when you've had a life experience that has really rounded you really well. And so one thing about me that was always innate, it was a natural thing, was I always felt I needed to grow. It was always something that I was really hungry for. So even at a young age, when there was adversity and things, I had a curiosity to life that was outside of the box that I was set in, right? Even like going back to the circling back is that fire truck. Everyone's looking at the body covered and the crime scene and all that stuff. And my natural thing was, what is this thing? I can get close to it. I can look at it. There was a curiosity to life. And so as I was going to school and things like that, I was a young mom, I was a single mother, I worked in a casino. But I remember my first job was a hotel operator in the casino. And here I am, 18 years old, and it was the amount of money I needed to make in order for me and my son to be able to have a place to stay. Because I was kind of from place to place to place for a long time. My son and I were living out of boxes, and I was like, I can't have this be his life when he gets to an age where he can remember things. And so I went after casino jobs because they had better benefits and things like that. But that job was an introduction. And when there was another opportunity, I was like, ooh, how can I do that? And I remember during that time, people would, in my position, are you crazy? You're going to take that other position? You're going to go on extra board. You're going to have to start all over. And I remember thinking, yes, or I can stay here forever. And I just always saw that there was another star to get after. And I don't necessarily know where all that came from, but it definitely exposed my life to the point where there was times when I would spend, 12 to 16 hours on an ambulance, literally seeing people die in my arms and, giving CPR and doing all these things to help people preserve their lives. And then taking that uniform off and putting on the suit and the fancy shoes and then walking into a casino, because ultimately I became a big executive for the casino. And, dealing with people wanting comps and losing millions of dollars on the table when I had just witnessed death before me, hours before. It's those dynamics in life that, when you're one day sitting in front of somebody and you're CPR and the whole family's watching and they die and you think, what did I do wrong? How did I not get this right? Why is this person gone? And then turn around and get on a jet to fly to another country to break bread with a sheik in Dubai to talk about his billions of dollars. It refines you. It makes you learn a lot about life in very dynamic ways, which I feel was all preparing me to actually be the coach that I am.
So from what you just said now, I'm curious, was there ever a point that you felt you became cold or shut down in motion because of, like you said, you're literally going 1 minute doing CPR, trying to save somebody's life, but then 2 hours later, you got to fly out. Now you're in somebody's face trying to, talk about whatever it is they're talking about, but almost removing what had just happened 24 hours ago. Like, was there a point that you can remember, or was something you worked through that maybe did become cold, or you kind of just learned to deal with the emotions?
I think I did become cold at one point, but it wasn't to the patients and the people in the humble world that I was living in the ambulance. As a matter of fact, when I finally had to walk away from that career because my other career had become so big that I couldn't do both. I never worked on the ambulance because it was, I was making money, and it was always the job that I did because I loved. I always had another job to support my son and I. It was the job I truly loved. What would make me cold at times, if you will, towards people and towards humanity was being around, not all, but many of the people in the casino world that you involve yourself with, first world problems, issues that were meaningless to me and superficial, their greed and their desire for things. And they were just so out of touch with what was happening in real life. And some of those people, money embellishes a lot. Whoever you are, if the more money you have, Tony Robbins talks about this, the more money you have, the more it embellishes that. And when you're dealing with people who are willing to gamble all of that over the weekend, it's a different mindset of people you're dealing with. So I did become very cold at times and very calloused, if you will, when it came to certain types of people that had a certain amount of wealth. I mean, and that's not everybody, but in that environment, it did jade me, because I would look at people like, you're so self-absorbed and you're so this, literally this little kid just died and this family, is suffering, or someone just called 911 and I showed up and they're having a massive heart attack and we had to talk them into getting in the ambulance because they're afraid of the bill they're going to get.
Damn.
And I would literally have to say to patients at times, you have two choices. You can pay for the hospital bill or someone can pay for your funeral. Are you prepared for either cost? And that was sad to me, that there was this total difference of worlds that I was looking at simultaneously. So yes, it did make me cold at times to the latter of it.
That's a lot to see. I have a client who I train now who's a nurse, and Thursday, she's still newer into the nursing world, and there's days she comes in. I remember she first saw her dead patient, dead patient, and then a day where a few people died, and it's just like, I've seen things and been through things, but I couldn't imagine like that being almost a daily thing that can happen at any given moment. You're probably gonna see somebody die today. So when you decided to leave the EMT, now you're working in the casino industry, what do you think? Because to my knowledge, that industry is mostly male dominated.
The casino industry?
Yeah.
Well, actually both, ironically. The medical industry, especially like when you're working the streets on trucks and stuff like that, you've got more men than you typically have women in those. And so I was always kind of mostly surrounded by men in both of my industries. What
was one of the hardest things to kind of overcome when you were in the casino industry as a woman, dealing with the high players, dealing with, all the success? Like, what was the hardest thing about that?
I don't even have to think about it. The most frustrating thing I would say was the assumption that because I was a female and an attractive woman with curves, that was somehow going to make my job easier. And especially to my male counterparts, that there was so much, especially when I started growing in success and I started showing that I could do the job just like anybody else, there was always this whisper, this conversation like, oh, okay, she got that client because she's got tits and ass, right? And I'm like, no, I got the conversation because of that, but I have to work twice as hard as you do to get them to respect me professionally. And on top of that, there were females in my industry, in the casino, that compromised themselves, and they had reputations. And so when these clients would come to me, especially, again, in the casino business, big high rollers, big gamblers, they're few and far between, right? The big dogs, the big guys were all after the same amount of business. So if one attractive casino host, executive gave into the temptations or thought she was going to get a meal ticket off the person, well, the next time he circles back and I'm his host, then he expects similar favors. And so it was challenging for me to navigate that without becoming jaded. You know, I had to be very, very careful not to let it put a chip on my shoulder.
So then I would think that you're dealing with high-end people, right? People with millions of dollars, gambling. With the real estate that you do, is it the similar kind of clientele that you deal with?
So what I love about real estate and why I transitioned into it, first I got into real estate because I had been investing in property myself. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to start liquidating and doing different things, let me get my license so I have my ear to the ground and I can kind of be a facilitator to my own transactions. That's why I originally got into real estate. And then, you know, you have to sign up for a brokerage. You have to have your license hanging somewhere. And so I was like, okay, I'll do some deals here and there. I had a big thriving career in the casino. I was making plenty of money. So it wasn't like it wasn't sink or swim for me at the time. But what I found when I was doing real estate was I was transacting, but for something much more fulfilling. You know, I remember in my casino career, one of my biggest clients that I had watched this man lose $10 million in 4 hours.
Oh my God.
4 hours. He was playing Baccarat. And his average bet was like $260,000 a hand. He had special limits because of the caliber of player he was. And he was an anomaly. Like there was not very many clients like that at that time. Still there isn't. And it took me a good 4 years to cultivate that business, to finally get him to come and give us a drop in the casino. But I remember in that moment, everybody was ecstatic. They could not believe I had landed this client. And my bosses and everybody were like, you've moved the needle for this quarter. And I was getting all the pats on the back and everything. But in that moment, it was like the peak of my career, but it was when I felt the least happy about my job. And I started thinking, I would much rather transact $10 million in real estate to hand keys to people so they can have their home or their, you know, American dream, so to speak, than to watch somebody, no matter how wealthy they are, because he could afford to lose money like that, to just watch somebody throw their money away. And not because, again, that he couldn't afford it, but because he hated his own money. It had created a world for him that was lonely. And it was sad to watch it time and time and over again. And not just him, but anybody who would lose a significant amount of money, and that being whatever was significant to them. Because what I also learned was how relative money is. Emotionally, they all feel the same if the money if the loss is significant enough to them. It didn't matter the dollar amount. And so it was just hard to be in that world because I didn't like to see people lose.
Now, we'll go into the coaching because I think that's something you enjoy doing. And you say you've been doing it for 10 years. Now, to my knowledge, you started off as self-love. And then now you coach. What would you say, who is your ideal client now, or what is it you're coaching now?
Yeah, great. So I got into coaching wanting to help people with relationships and self-love. The reason why that was the inception of my coaching is because it was where I had my greatest pain points myself. I had been in an abusive relationship and I stayed in it longer than I thought that I would. I never even thought I'd be that girl to end up in that type of relationship, especially because I grew up in a home there was a lot of domestic violence. I just knew I wasn't going to be that girl until I became her. I had to do a lot of personal work while I was in the relationship because it had such a strong hold on me that it was so hard for me to get out of it, and I couldn't understand why, because clearly there was a problem. But I was so trapped. I was in that trauma bond. And then when I finally pulled the trigger and got out of the relationship, it was incredibly crippling to heal. And I, again, was still a seeker, and I was wishing my life away. I was like, I know this isn't going to last forever, but I needed to hurry up. And I was wishing my life away. And so I started doing work, and I'm like, I can't spend my life feeling like this. I'm not a great mother. I'm not being a good friend. I was just I felt like I was dissolving as a human. And so I started doing all this work, and the work was incredibly effective. And that's why when I finally got into coaching, I'm like, I want to teach people how to get out of this, because I know how painful it is, number one, to stay in it, and then how to get past the pain after you remove yourself. Because I still loved this person, and the pain just became greater than the love. And so that's why I started the whole self-love and whatnot. When I started that journey, I assumed a lot. I assumed that a lot of people would be just as ambitious and driven to get out of their pain as I was. And what I started to discover was that most people, unfortunately and understandably, are very comfortable being the victims in their stories. And they just want, my experience, of course, they wanted me to be more of a sounding board and someone to confirm their pain and to confirm their victim. Right. And so they wanted me to make that person the bad guy and so on, or the bad girl, whomever. And it got very draining for me because I wanted their healing more than they did. And so at one point I shut the business down completely. Oh, wow. I was overwhelmed and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Then I started getting that call and that pull, and I just knew that, like, why can't I shake this? Why can't I just get this coaching thing out of my system? And I said, I got to pivot. I got to switch. At that time, I'd been introduced to Tony Robbins, and I was doing Tony Robbins programs and stuff like that. And so I went to get trained through Tony Robbins' organization, and I learned the skills of peak performance coaching.
Okay.
And so I was like, this is a different strategy. I definitely want to try this. So I started doing workshops and introducing some of those concepts, and I started seeing change. I started seeing things that were really effective. And so for the longest time, I would do peak performance coaching. Now, fast forward, what I have found is that a lot of people that are really intentional about peak performance have a lot of coaching spirit in them as well. And so a lot of people that I've coached actually want to be some form of coach. The problem is they have the desire, they have the life experiences, because usually what people coach on come from a place of, it's an introspective place, some place they've been, but they just don't really know where to start and how to navigate that, and actually to have the framework to make it a business. And so now my pivot in my coaching is like, let me be the coach to coaches. Let me be that person that, number one, teaches them mindset when it comes to who you really have to be to do it, and how not to give up when you want to procrastinate and you get overwhelmed and all those things. And then also, what are the step-by-step? Where do you start? And hopefully give them that blueprint so that way they can have their own successful coaching.
And it's crazy because you've basically helped me figure out, I'm already a fitness coach, something I've done, I dove into, I love doing it. But I understood there was another calling for me also with being sober and going through everything I went through with sobriety, having to learn so much. And I met you around just after a year and some change of my sobriety.
Yep.
And I'm glad I did, because I just told somebody this recently, like, the hard part for me personally wasn't to just stop drinking. Like, I had the capacity to be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done drinking. And I was cool at first, but then after about a year and a half, that first year mark is where mentally my mind started to change, how I saw life, how I saw people, how I saw myself. And there was a lot of things I struggled with identity of myself. How am I going to interact with people, being judgy, people who still wanted to drink and and all that. Like, in my head, what the fuck's wrong with them? Like, I wanted everybody to be on board with what I was doing. Yeah. So then luckily I met you, and you kind of helped me, you coached me and helped me figure out how to navigate things, how to learn myself again, how to pretty much not worry about what other people are doing. And,
right.
That's their journey. So I definitely think you going into coaching others, become coaches, is what's needed. Because there's people like me who I definitely needed it. Well, we'll go back to what that point I was making, was that you helped me figure out sober wellness coaching was something I could do and I should be doing, because there are literally people out there who hear my story and they want to stop drinking. They don't know how.
Yeah.
They stop drinking. They don't know how to navigate after. How do you date? How do you do all these things, which are things I literally struggled with. Even to this day, sometimes there's still some things I struggle with being a person that's sober, which is so crazy to me sometimes when I think about it.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes people treat you as though, oh no, they're sober, keep them over there, And it's like, I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
I'm just I don't know, I'm just more present, I
Well,
guess.
I think
or
most people are worried about judgment.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And even like, I would say the dating part of thing has been the hardest thing ever through the past 2 years of being sober.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, we should talk about that. You've never brought that up in coaching. We can have a session right now.
So,
But what makes it difficult, do you think?
so the first person I dated when I was sober, I went 2022. I gave up alcohol, and I also told myself I'm going celibate also.
Okay.
Purposely, like I'm celibate, I'm sober, I'm focusing on this business because I just became a trainer for myself, fitness coach, working for myself. I need to be focused, and throughout my life, those were the things that were always my vices, I guess.
Okay.
Getting drunk, chasing girls, whatever. And I'm like, nah, I need to be by myself. So that happened for a few months, and then I met a girl, and at the time, I was almost a year sober. She drank, but I wasn't sober. I was alcohol free. I still smoked weed.
Okay.
So we would smoke weed and kick it, whatever. We started dating for a few months. And it's funny because on the first date, I got us tickets to go see Joe Coy, a comedy show.
I love him.
Yeah. And I noticed she wasn't getting drinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'm about 11 months in. And I'm like, oh, you're not drinking? She's like, no, I'm be respectful of what you got going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's okay. Like, that's what you want to do. You can. And she didn't want to. I was like, cool. Moving forward, she didn't drink it. She drank one more time while we were dating. It was like her birthday. Then after that, she stopped. So
Interesting.
the next few months, she was done drinking alcohol. It was a part of her job and everything too. Like, her workplace kind of influenced it. But we both still smoked. And we dated for a few months. Didn't work out. Then, that's right around the time I met you, I think. I was like single for like a week or two. And then I got in a situation with the other girl,
Mm-hmm.
the older girl. And she drank here and there, nothing crazy. And I remember one time we were kissing, and like, it was after a day of brunch or something she did. And I could taste the
Mm-hmm.
tequila as I'm kissing her. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I like this, But I had a conversation with her about it. I was like, hey, look, I don't mind that you drink or anything like that. But for me personally, I prefer it if you don't do it when we're hanging out or things like that.
Yeah.
If you have girls night, go do your thing. But I prefer it to not be that way. And she respected it. And moving forward, that was an issue. Then we didn't work out, and then I've been single ever since. And anytime I've tried to, it's just different. I don't know. It's just, for me, it doesn't bother me because I don't like being out late anyways. Like, you can go do lunch, do coffee or something like that, get to know the person, all these
But what are
things.
you afraid of, though?
What am I afraid of?
Because when I hear you say all those things, it just sounds like normal relationship woes. It seemed like you had good communication and people were
No, so the
with
problem
it.
wasn't with them.
Mhm,
It worked
yeah.
out well, but moving forward with women, it's not too often I've came across women who don't drink.
right.
Which, like I said, they don't have to be completely sober, but I don't want to be a part of somebody's life so consistently. Like every weekend they got to drink. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So there is some judgment on your part.
I guess.
Yeah. So I guess
This is my podcast. We're not going to turn this. We're not going to turn this to a coaching session attacking
well, I'm
me.
just saying, like, sometimes when you made a bold statement and you're saying ever since I've been sober, this is the struggle that I've had. And that's powerful, right? That means something. There's some significance to that. So when I hear you say that, what I hear is that there is a great amount of fear behind that. And maybe still you not really truly understanding this new identity and what that means to you. And maybe because you've been so focused on it that you haven't intentionally set a goal to find the person that fits you.
No,
It might not
I
have.
haven't.
It might not just be a priority for you right now.
And it's not. It's just kind of a.
But is it not because you're afraid, or is it not just because you don't want it? Do you want?
I don't want it.
You don't want it right now.
No, I think for me, I get bored, and I got free time, and I'm like, okay, let's
That's
see.
a
what's
whole
on
other bag to unpack right there.
I know, but listen, I'm aware.
Where do you get bored from your relationships?
No. I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about when I decide, or I get the idea of oh, maybe I do want to date somebody or something.
Okay.
It's just when I'm in a moment of boredom or something. So I'm not working on anything. I'm kind of just bored. I got some free time on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go on a date or something. And sometimes I don't even really want to get into something more than anything.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Why are you laughing?
Because there's a lot to unpack there.
There probably is. We can unpack it, but that's just
Yeah.
where I'm at in life right
Okay.
now. Just with the things I'm trying to set up, with making sure my fitness business still runs good. That's my income. And then as I'm growing this sober wellness business, and trying to transform these events that I do into some type of business also. So
let me ask you a question really quick.
Here we
just
go.
real quick.
Real quick.
And I won't go into too much. We can have a conversation at the next session. But when it comes to relationships for you, how do you see the next one being when you're ready? Who is this person for you? What does she look like to you? What's she about? And who do you have to be to acquire her?
Who do I have to be to acquire her?
Yeah, for that to be a match, for it to be synergistic.
What do you mean? I
guess my
who
question
I am now. I mean,
but my question for you is, it sounds to me. Okay, well, this is not a question. It sounds to me a little bit like
like what?
I mean, it just sounds to me a little bit like, with respectfully, like I said, we won't go too much into it.
Hurt my feelings.
Well, it's a confidence issue.
Really? You think so?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
I do. Because I think that you're very intentional about your life right now, and you're very clear and focused, but you're not where you want to be. Right?
I don't know. That's never stopped me.
But no, but your dating and your experiences of the past was also a drunk person choosing those relationships. A person who drank, right? Your sobriety right now has been focused on, your life has been focused on your sobriety. But also with that, because you've been doing the things and you've been very progressive and being intentional about your growth in that space, you want to build things. And it seems to me that the relationships that you might want for your life might be something that you might consider to be more permanent for you, as opposed to kind of fleeting relationships. But if you're not where you feel like you need to be, I think you have a very specific idea of maybe the type of woman you would like. I don't think you feel like you're him yet to have her. So you just focus on your what you're building.
Nah, girl, you tripping. I'm ready.
Okay. So you are ready then.
I think.
Okay, now.
I think in the sense of not thinking. I don't feel like I'm not where I need to be or anything like that.
Okay.
I've never had there's been times where there were times where I was broken body. I guess this is different kind of. Anyways, my body was
mindset.
A broken body, sleeping on mom's couch, and I was still doing things.
Yeah, because you were still a drinker.
I wasn't drinking though. I was sober.
But you weren't drinking because you couldn't.
Well, I meant the confidence thing. That's the part I'm saying. Is there was never a confidence issue when it came to approaching.
But I don't mean it like you approaching women and approaching casual relationships with women. I'm not saying that you don't have confidence there. I don't mean that you're a person who doesn't lack self-esteem. What I mean is that you're not confidently the man you want to be to have confidence in the woman you actually want. And maybe that's why you're focused on other things right now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a subconscious thing.
Anyways,
whatever. Moving on.
I don't know how this flipped on me.
We'll talk about that, because I feel like you do want a relationship, but you don't. You also don't want the distraction.
I think that's part of it. It's just it takes a lot. You know what I mean? You got to give the attention. You got to give all those things, and which it can be good and all that, but I don't want to call it a distraction. But it does take away from the things I really want to do now. And what I've been trying to do is kind of, instead of going and looking for it, like going on dating apps and all these things, trying to pursue it so strongly, I guess
you want it to happen organically.
It'll come, you know. I'll be at the farmer's market, which I go every time. I love
that.
And she'll come to the farmer's market. Oh my God, you like?
Yeah, she won't come to
this
you ready.
Organic jerky, I like it too.
She won't come to you ready. She'll come now and she'll walk right by, and you won't see her because you're not ready. But when you become ready, when you have set your mind for that, at whatever that season is in your life, you're just not in that season right now. But when that season comes, you'll be more familiar with her when she appears. You know what I mean?
Since we're on the relationship topic,
okay,
and you're coming after me. No, but
this is what people love me to talk about relationships. Let's go.
No, what I want to know is with the coaching, right? Obviously, your life experiences. And I'm gonna touch on that real quick. I think sometimes with coaching, you made a good point. How you said the years of experience of things you went through, and comparing it to going and getting certifications and studying and all that, how important that is, you know, to do the homework, but it's the life experience that kind of made you the coach you are.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree on that. And what I was going to ask is, with your coaching and your life experience, and then once you went and you got Tony Robbins' info and you got all the tactics, and now you know how to,
Yeah, I've
read
taken
somebody.
a lot of different courses. Yeah.
How is it for you with that knowledge and all that coaching hat and relationships? Not just romantic, but with your son, with your friends, with business. Has it gotten in the way sometimes? And has it helped you?
Has it gotten in the way?
And I mean,
You
like,
mean
in a
like
sense
with
of
my
like,
clients or with my personal life?
I'll say with your personal life. Has
Okay.
it gotten in the way to where you might get over analytical with them and
Yeah.
kind of?
Okay. So yes, I have an incredibly analytical mind. Right. I'm a very much a what's the word I'm looking for? People always say you're always psychoanalyzing. That's the word I was looking for.
Sure
I
is.
just naturally, innately am a psychoanalyzer. Right. Why am I that way? Because of multiple facets, right? Same thing when people say, "Oh, you're an empath. You just have this thing." Because my life experiences gave me wisdom, which gave me my intuitive tools as a coach. So there are things that I'm going to speak to a client about that are part of my program or the questions and the way I was taught to do it. But what I'm also listening for is what my intuition picks up on people, right? Where I got all those things from was my hardships in life. It created a little girl to have a lot of spider senses, right? Because I was looking to survive. I was in flight or fight most of my young life. So it created this empath, as you will, right? It's not like it's a supernatural thing. It's just that every little detail, every little change. Then I went through that craziness, and I lived homeless in a homeless shelter. I know you can relate to that. You were homeless too as a child. Growing in a home, there was a lot of violence, and almost seeing my mother be killed and things like that. Losing a friend to violence. My best friend was murdered. So those kind of things, and just the environment, the gunshots, the everything happening in my neighborhood. You just get these spider senses. Then on top of that, I go from the frying pan to the fire, which brings me to working on an ambulance. You go on a scene of a call, and you have to be very vigilant of what's happening around you, because there are times where you don't feel safe, or there are times when a person's very sick, and you have to have this like weird sixth sense to just notice little adjustments, whether it's a little color change or a smell that you smell. You just develop these things. Now, in a perfect world, I'll be able to shut all of that off. But when I am talking to just everyday people or my family or my friends, and something's wrong with them, something's going on, I can sense it and I can see it and I can feel it. So I've become incredibly discerning, right? And so most people can't lie to me about what's going on with them, because everything else is telling me the truth. And it is hard sometimes for me to shut it off. I've had to learn to find ways to suggest or say things without giving unsolicited advice. And it's hard also because I come from a background of where I had lost a parent to suicide, and I had a parent that was very depressed and made several attempts on their life after the fact, that I also have to be careful not to project my coaching. Because there are times when, or my psychoanalytical self, because again, most of the time I'm looking to make sure that they're not too sad that they're going to take their life. And so that's a thing that I get worried about a lot, and that's why I overly psychoanalyze people, almost like I'm still looking to save. Like, if I can just find out what's wrong with them and fix them. I always think the worst case scenario, will they be so sad in their life? Will they be so upset that they take their lives? So yeah, it's hard for me, because it's not just textbook for me. It's not just because I took a Tony Robbins course, or I went to this course and this course, and I know what to say, and are you listening? Tell me more. It's not just that for me. It's intuitive. I can feel it. And so it is very difficult for me sometimes to just shut it off.
We were just talking about it earlier before we got on the pod, 'cause I wanted to make sure we save it so it was a good conversation. We were talking about being in coach mode all the time. I know for me, once I became a fitness coach, and a lot of the stuff I did was self-development stuff. Like, I would just dive into certain podcasts, certain books, and really like you said earlier, it's so crazy. You said it earlier. You said I always had this inner drive to just want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've always felt also. And it was hard to do that because of the upbringing, of being in survivor mode so long, not knowing how to grow. There was nobody, I'm not saying nobody I looked up to, but nobody who can show me the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom is worried about where we're going to slay tonight. Dad is not in my life. And it wasn't until I became older, honestly, until, when I got older, I kind of started to figure out ways I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you a question. Oh, with the coach mode, is it hard? I guess your answer is hard to turn off, but do you ask them? One thing we talked about is asking people, do you want
Am I
advice?
listening, or shall I say something?
Am I listening, or
Yeah.
do you want advice?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great question to ask because through my experience, I feel people just honestly want to hear themselves talk.
Yeah.
And when you don't want to agree with what they're creating in their head, they kind of almost paint you as a bad person.
Yeah. Oh, I get in trouble all the
You
time.
know what I mean? So it's kind of, and that's what I was getting to. So I got lost. But when I started self-developing myself, it was like, man, there's so many ways you could change your mindset and how you see life. And you have a conversation with somebody and they're saying all these problems. And if you know them well enough, you're like, damn, it's the same shit again and again.
Yeah.
You want to help them so bad. Like, please take this information. So has that caused, you said it's caused a lot of trouble, but.
Well, because I'm not an agreeable person. If I don't agree, if I don't think that that a choice you're making is the right choice, I can be very vocal about that. More so when I care about you than when I don't.
Okay, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
What is a right and wrong choice? Or who are you to say that?
When it's catastrophic to your life, when it's causing detriment to your life. You know, when I see people inflicting self-sabotage and or they're self-loathing or self-deprecating, or they're choosing relationships to confirm their uselessness and their worthlessness that they believe in within themselves. And so, you know, you can blame the other person all day long for your suffering, but your suffering is your choice. You know, pain is pain. I get that. It's inevitable. It'll happen to all of us. Again, this is one of the things that Tony Robbins talks about. That was a big takeaway even for me, is that, you know, people put pain and suffering together, but it's like pain is inevitable. It's that conversation that says, I thought the outcome of my life was going to be this and it didn't happen. The suffering comes when we change the narrative to, I thought the outcome of my life was going to be different and I'm helpless. And then that becomes suffering because you feel like you don't have any choice to make change. And it's very difficult for me to sit and watch somebody set themselves on fire, and I got a bucket of water, and I can't just watch you do it. I'm going to throw the bucket of water at you. And then when you're drenched in water, you're going to be pissed off at me, saying, look what you did. I'm soaking wet. It's like, mofo, you was freaking on fire. And people don't see that. And a lot of times it's because they don't want to. People are so rooted in their pain, it becomes their identity construct. So they attract certain relationships and circumstances and things. They actually attract it into their life because they say this is acceptable. And they don't verbally say it or they don't think about it. It's blind spots, it's limiting beliefs that they have conjured up through multiple narratives they've created because of things that have happened. And it's very difficult for me to watch people go through it. Because I remember telling a friend recently, she was like, you know, I just want you to listen. It wasn't that reason. It was a while ago, but I just want you to listen. I just want you to listen. I want you to listen. Why do you feel like you always have to say something? And I said, because I'm a solution-driven person and I love you and I care about you. I will never say things to you to criticize you or to judge you or to put you down, although it may feel like that to you because not many people will tell you the truth. But I'm telling you this truth because I care about you. And it's not going to feel pretty because it's an ugly truth that I'm sharing with you, you know? And it's like, I can't sit here and listen to you time and time and time again continue to suffer because that's a choice you're making without me finally saying something to you. And I will find my ways to say it. Right? I will find delicate ways to say it, but most people won't hear it until you scream it at the top of the mountain.
I think it's important people learn not to always feel like you're being attacked.
Yeah.
Because as you're speaking and saying all this stuff, I feel that way sometimes when we're talking and
Yeah,
stuff, and you
I
start
know.
going at me and this and that. I'm like, oh my God, I should even ask her how her day was. But but I've learned to. It's crazy. You'd be surprised. I wish it's hard to judge the level of growth, emotionally and how you
Yeah.
handle things. Like I wish we had a chart or something that can track. Like if you're trying to lose weight, you can obviously see a scale.
Yeah.
From when I first met you to now, because there's just certain things emotionally I've been able to just get better at. Like that, for example, like when we're having a conversation about something and you start fucking attacking me and I'm like, all right, fuck.
I'm not attacking you.
Listen, hold on. That's just a word I'm using. You're not attacking me. Just calling me out. Like
Yeah.
literally calling me out on
Yeah.
the shit.
Mhm.
Hey, D, this is what it is. Boom, boom, boom. Even just now, like on the relationship side of things.
Well, I'm a tough love coach for sure.
I had to, and I like it. That's what
Yeah.
I type my personality is what I need. I don't
Yeah.
need this soft bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't need that. But what I had to learn was take the emotion out of it,
Mhm.
my emotional reaction, and be like, okay, what is she really saying? And if it's true, then it's true. That's probably why it is hitting
Yeah.
me so hard, and take away the emotion side of things. And with coaching, even though I'm a fitness coach, that's one thing I had to learn too, is learn everybody's motivational language.
Right.
Because I can't, there might be somebody like you, I can yell, Lorraine, get the fuck up, let's go,
Yeah.
do these reps.
Right.
There's somebody else, that's not gonna hit with them.
Yeah.
They need more of a different approach. So what I wanna ask you also, because you said it earlier about, I've had this question for a while, for years.
Mhm.
It's a question I had for years, I never brought it up to you. It was before I met you. You said how we attract certain relationships and all these things.
Mhm.
There was a period in my life, right? From 2000 and
Oh, he got the dates.
yeah, because I always think back, like, what was it that was happening?
Mhm.
Me as a person, from like 20, he got the dates, from like 2014, maybe 13 to like 16, 17,
Okay.
right? So it was about 3-4 year period. My accident happened during this period, everything. Where I was attracting strippers.
Oh my God.
I'm being so serious. Now,
Were you at the strip club when
no.
you were attracting them?
no,
Though they were
I've
just...
never been a strip club person.
Okay.
In my whole 33 years, I've probably been less than 10 times.
Okay.
It was just meeting to a mutual friend or something like that.
Mhm.
And it was happening back to back to back to where it was like, I had to sit and ask myself, what is it? What energy am I giving? Or what is that's happening that I'm attracting these type of women
Mhm.
that are in that field of work?
Well, when you say these type of women, let's strip away, no pun intended, their career, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about who they were as people. Like, what kind of energy did they have? What kind of personality did they have? What were their conversations? Was it similar to your surroundings? Because there's only 6 degrees of separation from people,
Yeah.
really, right?
And my thing is, I never try to judge people off what they do. In my head, I always saw it as,
That's a lie.
it was. I saw it as that was their job. But
Yeah.
also, I think it was for me, it was a way, almost like an out.
Okay.
To where I'm not going to fully commit because you do that. So it's kind of like, we're not really together because who's going to date a stripper? That makes sense? So it's kind of like I had this back door out. So maybe I'd be thinking that's probably why
Because I'm sure
attracted
you
to them.
met many other people during those times.
Yeah.
So if there were 10 girls that you met and one happened to be the stripper, that would be the one you would date.
What do you
Right.
mean?
Well, I'm just saying it's reticular activation system.
But I don't think it's based necessarily off their, I guess, another profession, right? It's them as a person, you're saying?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, just saying, like, how can I explain it? Like, it's RAS factor. It's just what you paid attention to.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I mean, you live in Las Vegas, so to meet a dancer is not far-fetched.
Yeah.
To meet multiple dancers is not really that far-fetched. And our environments are 6 degrees of separation of people. Like, so whoever you're in proximity to may attracted those kind of people for you to meet.
I'm trying to think, because in that time period of life,
It doesn't mean they necessarily were. It just, when you web your life, right? When you zone out and you really look at the web, you can see you as a spider, the web you've woven, and you can see what you catch, the flies that you catch in your web. And so there are going to be we could go back and dissect that all day long, but definitely proximity is power. So you're only in so many, you spun that web to catch those kind of people. It's more about you.
just call me a pimp.
No?
Oh.
I bet you weren't pimping? Oh, or do we not need to go there?
What? No, I've never.
The
No.
way your expression was like,
No,
But, you know,
I was not pimping.
I mean, I don't want to get off on a tangent about
Sorry.
this, but it's reticular activation. It's like if my ex-boyfriend drove a black BMW, and now we've had this terrible breakup or whatever, I swear to you, everywhere I go, I see a black BMW. It's just everywhere in my sights, right? If I get fixated on a color, if I were to say, where's all the red in the room, all of a sudden you're looking around and there's red everywhere that you never paid attention to. So we operate, and those are like silly examples, but this is why mindset is so powerful, because we operate on this activation system, what we're believing. And so we will notice and focus on things that are attracting our belief system. And that goes whether you believe good or bad, right? And so at that time in your life, I mean, you had a very specific time of things that were going on in your life. And so there's something that was attracting to, because it's what you focus on. It's what you paid attention to more so than anything else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was something that was always in my head. I was like, man, it was a period of my life where it just would meet him randomly or somehow come out of the way. And I'm like, once I got older and I look back, I was like, why?
Now you just go out there looking for cougars.
Right, so
I'm just kidding.
I will say, for the record, 35 plus, that's the limit. 35
There's no
plus.
limit with the plus, though.
Well,
there's your minimum, but you don't have a maximum?
35 minimum, I don't know. I never dated nobody that much older than me.
Okay.
7 years was the oldest. So, I mean, I was asking a client, like, where are the older women at? Where do you go? Like, yeah, you got to go down to Grape Street or Jean.
Oh, my Lord Jesus. You're actually on a mission.
No. Not right now.
Fast forward to years from now, are you going to be like, so Coach Lorraine, in 2024, between 2024 and 2026, I kept meeting all these older, beautiful women.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Because you're similar in the sense of me, where we just talked about the coaching style, to where you might say something they don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might want to call them out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
Would you say being too blunt can be toxic?
That's funny you asked that question. Yes. Mm-hmm. You want me to elaborate?
Of course.
Well, first of all, when it comes to coaching, okay,
hold on. Let me rewind it back. I don't mean this in necessarily just the coaching space.
Okay.
Just because I'm sure there's homegirl, you have a homegirl out there, whoever, who's just that one homegirl that's always, I'm blunt. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
So can being too blunt or being blunt, can that be toxic?
Yes, absolutely. So I do want to say that, first of all, in coaching, especially in the beginning of coaching, I'm not really talking as much as I'm listening. I need to hear the person unpack their bags. I need to hear the way that they describe circumstances in their life, how their narratives go, who they are in the story. Some people tell the story from a perspective of a victim. Some people are victorious and they're like, I'm just an overcomer, and it's usually not true. And some people villainize themselves. They make themselves the bad person in everything that they're having. So I need to listen more than I speak, especially in the beginning, because I'm trying to understand the identity construct that they've created within themselves. So that's very, very important to me. At some point in the process of coaching, I feel, for me, and the way I do coaching, is that it is very, very important that I become an accountability coach to them. And so this is where I become very blunt and very direct, and just call them out on their stuff, because they need that. Most people don't have people around them, especially if they're very strong-willed people. And a lot of people that I talk to, that I coach, I attract a lot of high achievers. And so they have very strong personalities that most people won't challenge them. And so I have to do that because they need that humble pie. Now, with that said, can being blunt be toxic? Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because I don't necessarily measure a man by what he does as much as I do what the intentions are in his heart. And it's very difficult sometimes to measure intention, because I know people that are blunt because they're choosing to be nasty, that they want to say the thing to humiliate, exploit, or embarrass a person, or to demean them, because they have a chip on their shoulder and they want to make themselves feel better than the other person, and they get a little self-righteous in their bluntness. That's just who I am. And it's like, but what is the intention? What is the undertone behind this? Some people are blunt because of frustration, right? And they can't take seeing a person go through things. And there are people who are brutally honest. Like, you're asking me, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not holding back. But the intention in my heart is nothing but good for you. I'm just trying to let you see what you're not seeing. So I think it really matters, the intention. And it's hard to gauge that sometimes, because you'll get a lot of people that will seem to be your friends and seem to have your best interest and want to be brutally honest with you when they are secretly envious of you. They want to find ways to chop at you and find wrong in you. There's judgment. And if you're not careful with who you are and rooted in who you are, you won't be able to see the forest from the tree, so to speak. You won't be able to necessarily gauge someone's intentions. And I've seen people in relationships where a person, friendships even, where the friendship is abusive. And they do those things. They gaslight their friends. They put them down. They demean them as a means of controlling that friendship. And so we have to be very careful. So yes, it can be very toxic.
I also think it probably depends on the delivery.
Yeah.
And the communication of the bluntness.
Yeah.
Because I'm fairly blunt to a certain extent, but I try to steer away from that. That's just how I am. I'm like, no, you don't have to. There's a way you can talk to people. Communication is important.
One of my favorite books, Robert Greene, The 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, he's good.
And one of the things that he talks about, here's the problem with being blunt. And it's a personal experience I've had, because I can be very blunt, right? And to the recipient of that, depending on who they are, because there's two kinds of people. I've learned this in psychology and stuff. Is there's the kind of person who's problem solving driven. So when they come to you with a problem, they're looking for a solution to that problem. That's my personality type. I'm very problem solution. And I'm very matter of fact about it, which to a person who's a little bit more sensitive, they might feel like that's rude, or that, gosh, you're judging me. And it's like, no, it's just, I know you're feeling this emotion. We got to put this to the side. It's not a lot. You can't think logically like that. Let's look at the facts. Let's deal with the facts. So I can be very direct in that way, which can come across a certain way to someone who's sensitive. There's also the other type of person where they want to just be heard. When they come to a person, they want someone to just hear their story out. And maybe they more process it a little bit different, or they just need sounding boards. They don't really want solution. The problem is, a problem-solving person usually attracts that kind of person, and it ends up being some type of conflict. Whereas when I'm around a problem solver and I come to them with my problem, they can be direct and blunt and to the point with me, and I love every bit of it. Because I have such a strong personality, most people that I deal with won't tell me the truth. And I need it, right? I give it the way I need. But I also had to learn that that's my personality. That's not how everybody else is. So when someone comes to me, this is why I say, am I listening, or do you want me to say something? Because if they tell me they just need me to listen, then I could take a seat back and just kind of take in the information until it gets to a point.
I was asked,
there's a limit.
Has there ever been a time where somebody said, just listen, you're kind of just sitting there trying to fight
There's
it?
only so many times you can tell me the same story without me saying something.
It's crazy. I had a story. It's quick. Not even a story. It's just, it's about the growth of me as a human, obviously, but like my emotional side of things.
Okay.
So there was a time 6 months ago.
You were really good at these time frames, man. You're like to a T.
I'm like an elephant, bro. I
never forget.
Yeah. Well, I think of where I was at, who I was working with, whatever. That kind of helps me remember and paint the picture.
Okay, so 6 months ago, what happened?
This is February of 2024.
This is a me story, okay?
It ain't funny. I mean,
okay.
To me, it's kind of funny now. You helped me not go to jail.
I did?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Tell me more.
So there was a time, it was in February, where I got fired from that gym.
Okay.
B10.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, when I was sitting there, I think I was hot. Literally, like, my body was hot. and I was pissed. I was really risking. In my head, I was about to do something stupid. Like, I'm about to headbutt this man or something. Like, that's what my intention was. Like, I felt I was done so wrong.
Yeah.
And I felt so, like, hurt and just, what the, like, that's how, like, it was boiling, I guess is the word. And I don't even get mad like that. I can get irritated, all that, but for me to get real mad, as you know, it's me because I'm sensitive, which took me a while to realize. The way over years I've expressed my sensitivity is anger. It's easy to express anger.
Yeah.
And I was literally in my head plotting it all. Like, all right, this is what he wants to do? Okay. Let me look at my account. Let me transfer some money over so I can bail myself out.
Oh my God.
I
did not know this. You didn't go into that much detail.
I got some diehard clients. I know if I call them, they'll bail me out. I know people who are lawyers. It'll be okay. I've been in jail before.
So you really thought about this.
Oh, I did. I sat there for 2 hours. Hour and a half.
Okay.
And that was right when I had called you. And I had to call you and tell you what was the situation. And if you didn't like talk to me and kind of like
talk you off your ledge.
Yeah. It literally was it was in my mind a decision I was almost willing to make. And then, like I said, after.
But what was the epiphany for you? Because I didn't tell you what to do, but what was the conversation that put the animal back in the cage?
It made me pause for a second. And like I said, it made me sit with everything. You know, like really, instead of just reacting and, oh my God, he did this to me, this and that. I'm like, no, okay. I was already planning on leaving anyway. You know what I mean? Like this kind of just put the nail in the coffin, and everything that happened wasn't a surprise to me, you know? And I just realized I was real upset because of my clients. That was part of the reason why I was so upset and hurt, because there was a handful of them that came with me to that gym and they trusted me. Now I felt like I had let them down. Like, what the fuck did I put them into? So then, but me going to jail and doing all that, it's not.
Doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's not the kind of person I want to be. That reacts, and next thing you know, that's who I am around Vegas, the trainer who fucking attacked the guy and this and that. And you know what I mean? Now I got a record, like I've been to jail before in the past. Like,
yeah, or not even just that, just so many and then that could come with that, right? One of the things that I learned through a psychiatrist, actually, reading some books, I love behavioral science, so I study it a lot, I read a lot of books on it, was that we have 3 systems operating in our brain, right? There is the human mind, the monkey mind, and then the computer. And I always thought that this was super fascinating, because as I learned this, although I'm not a therapist or anything like that, it's just techniques that I can pick up on with people, is that we operate in one of those systems all the time. We're in one of the systems at any given time. What I find fascinating is that the human mind is the slowest operating system, but it is the most logical of all of the systems. It really knows how to process information. That's why taking pause and digesting the information helps to kind of put the monkey back in the cage, right? Like, go chill. Here's your banana. Go do your thing. The monkey mind has rapid response. It comes up with conclusions a lot faster than the human mind, but it's impulsive and it responds off of emotion and triggers. So that experience that you had with that person at that gym had nothing to do with him and everything to do with whatever has been in the cage with the monkey. And so all he had to do was make you feel like you were not enough to trigger all the things to come up. But because it's such a fast-acting response system, if you could just give it pause for a second, you can never get rid of it. But if you can just give it pause, then you can give the operating system that's more effective time to figure out what it's going to do. The third system, which is the computer, is exponentially faster than all of those systems because it's skills, develops skills. And so I'll use an example of an athlete, for example. If they're throwing that ball a certain way or doing that play over and over and over, it becomes in their fiber, in their being, it becomes a skill set. And it works so quickly and so rapidly because it requires little thought because it's so physiological. It just rapidly happens in your body. So the idea is to say, how do I develop skills in making decisions? So that way, the logic mind, which the human mind, which is going to take too long to process, can kick in a skill where it bypasses the monkey mind, where it operates and it comes up with conclusions a lot faster. That becomes skill set. And so that is always my goal with people when I coach them. And I'm glad that you called me.
Me too.
Yeah, no, seriously, because I didn't know it was to that degree, but I just remember how upset you were. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm thinking, he's taking this way too personally. This guy doing what he's doing is from his life experience that he's bestowing upon you, he's projecting onto you, and this is the outcome. And so now what you're going to do is take your life experience and project it on him, and that's going to create that outcome. And at the end of the day, it actually worked out better for you to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was ultimately a grow, just that day and situation in particular, just so much growth when I was able to look back and think like, I haven't been that mad in years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, years. I couldn't remember the last time I got that pissed where I could just feel my body warm. I was like, what the fuck?
But it
was crazy.
But tapping in, right? Like just tapping in, that pause and say, when I'm challenged, when something offends me, when something triggers me, because I can get triggered. Anger was my emotional home for a long time. But being able to, and I don't always execute it. There's sometimes when the monkey just comes out and he's just gonna run rampant. Or her name is Rose, so my monkey's name is Rose. When she comes out,
Rose.
There are times when I can't
Where's she from?
Get her in the cage. She's from England and Jamaica.
Ain't no damn monkeys in England.
Yeah, there is. There's monkeys
there?
everywhere. They're all in our brains. All of us are walking around with our little animals. My animal is a monkey. Your animal could be a wolf.
Mine's a panda bear.
Oh, a panda bear.
Pablo the panda.
Oh, my Lord Jesus. Okay, we'll own that. And then you say, okay, Pablo is tripping. Why is Pablo tripping? What was that thing that just happened that was a key to unlock this gate right now? And I'm going to give Pablo, it's bamboo. I think it's funny that actually because it's bamboo season and you chose a panda. That's ironic. Is it really?
Yeah.
But anyways, let me give Pablo, it's bamboo, and say, not right now, Pablo. I'll let you go out and play in a little bit, but we need to figure out what's happening here. What is the unresolved in my life that is triggering me so bad with this human being, with this person? Because most of the things that people do to us is not personal.
Yeah. It's hard. It takes work to realize
it's a lot
that.
Of work.
And
especially when you've been practicing the other way for so long.
Boy.
People practice anger and they become very skilled at it, right? So when your animal inside of you has a rage that's effective and gets immediate results from people, it becomes a skill and you don't even realize it. And so you go from the logic side of you, the human mind of yours, not even standing a chance to talk that person off that ledge because they've created skill and anger and rage, and that's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys can see why it's so important to get yourself a coach. Somebody who's not going to just pat you on your back, tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear so you can become who you want to become. With that being said, Lorraine, as you wrap up, I want to ask, what is something you would tell somebody who's listening to this podcast? Mm-hmm. The podcast is bamboo season, based on you want to plant seeds of change, take actionable steps, cultivate so you can grow. What is something you would recommend somebody do today that they can do as soon as they hear this? Mm-hmm. What kind of actionable steps can they take to help grow as a person?
I think the big thing that I've been really steadfast on and actually writing a book about is to remember who you are. What is your seed? I think that we all have our inner child, and our inner children are constantly at work. But the inner child wasn't just a broken child or a hurt child that didn't feel like they belonged or weren't enough or that they were alone. The inner child also had imagination and dreams and creativity, things that it wanted to do, but it got muffled some way along the way, you know? And, but that inner child is your seed. And I always use the example of the apple seed. The apple seed has so much potential of being a sprout, a plant, a tree that bears fruit, an orchard. That orchard can produce more food for more things. So there's plentifulness in maturing that thing. But you have to remember who you are at your core, the essence of who you are, because then you can cultivate that thing and you can let it grow as big as you want it to be. But I think that the moment you tap in and remember who you are, then you stop trying to be other trees. You're not going to be, if I'm an apple seed and I know I can be an apple tree and I know that at my core that that's the potential that I can be, then I'm just going to look for the soil I need to be in, the farmers I need to find. My farmers are the friends that are going to help me to grow. I'm going to find the other types of plants that could be around me to nurture me through seasons of my life. It's not easy for an apple seed to become a full flourishing tree. And it isn't easy for us either. But if I know that's what I am, and I believe that's what I am, and I know that I'm rooted in that, then I stop chasing trying to be an oak tree or a pine tree. I get to be me, and it's liberating. So I would say that's where it starts. Yeah.
That's a word right there.
Because you know what? You're so unique. You are somebody that will never be duplicated. There has been millions upon millions and billions of people that have come and gone before you. There will be that afterwards, but there will never be another you. So if you spent time on this earth just being the best version of yourself and you planted that seed where it needed to be, that is the most fulfilling thing that you can pursue to the end of your life. And so that's where you have to start.
Remember your seed.
Remember your seed.
Remember your seed. Wow. Now that's an episode right there, baby.
Are we concluding at this point?
Yeah.
Has Quan heard enough of us?
I'm just going to do my shout out. So, guys, on August 17th, I am doing a Black Business Expo for Black Business Month. At this event, the theme is Health is Wealth. We'll be talking on all 5 different facets of health, which include emotional health, spiritual, social, financial, and physical. So having all 5 in order so you can obtain wealth as a person. We'll have a panel of speakers touching on these topics. The speakers include Gabrielle Funches, Brandarius Johnson, Rob Hayes, Ann McDowell, Yvette Howard, and my man Devin Moore be a guest speaker. We're going to have all small Black business vendors Saturday, August 17th at 3 p.m. A portion of the ticket sales will go towards Greater Youth Sports, which is a local nonprofit helping youth sports here in Las Vegas, ran by my man Devontae and Annalise. So save the date, purchase your tickets. 2 words, let's get it.
And he will be providing a link at the bottom of this where you can purchase those tickets. Right?
There you go.
Got to add that on there.
All right, guys, tune in next week. It's bamboo season. We out.
Ciao.
Pose.
I don't even know which camera I'm supposed to look at.